all that you and your family have had to go through. Hang in there. We've all had some of this. It's really dangerous, and hang in there. I feel bad for your wife, your family, your kids.
Thank you.
And I'm really
the good
sorry
news
to hear
is there are more good people in this country than bad, and we've heard from a lot of them, and we're grateful for
100%.
them. So thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, my friend. Good show, Tucker. Welcome to Hannity. All right, buckle up. Tonight, the sanctity of your vote in this country is at risk. As Americans, when we head to the polls on Election Day, we expect our votes to be safeguarded, to be tracked, counted by diligent, honest officials in accordance with the law. That did not happen in southern Florida. Since election night, nearly 100,000 uncounted votes have just magically turned up in Liberal, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. We have no idea where the votes came from, where they've been, why they weren't counted last Tuesday. So many laws, we will outline this tonight, have been broken. Our inalienable rights have been spit on. And now, breaking just moments ago, our sources confirming tonight to Hannity, they are telling us a criminal investigation is, in fact, now underway. And coming up, we're going to show you why this crisis in Florida should deeply concern all Americans, not just Floridians. And tonight, we have warned you for months. The destructive Democratic agenda that they were hiding will wreak chaos across the country. Now they're finally telling us. Endless investigations, subpoenas, a quest for impeachment, not a single plan to improve the lives of the American people. So is now the top order of business in the Democratic-controlled House of Representatives just destroy Trump? The Pelosi destroy Trump House. Now we're going to show you how Pelosi, Waters, Schiff, Nadler and company are hitting the ground running. It's everything they purposely did not tell you before the midterms that they have been planning all along. All right, sit tight, buckle up. A lot to cover tonight. It'll take the full hour. We start with our breaking news opening monologue. All right, less than a month ago, a massive Category 4 hurricane made landfall on the Gulf Coast of Florida in the Panhandle. 35 counties were under a state of emergency. 155-mile-per-hour winds wreaking havoc throughout the Panhandle. The destruction, as you can see, as we saw, was horrific. Entire blocks were literally wiped away. The area sustained billions upon billions of dollars in damage. But on November the 6th, Floridians in the Panhandle, they went to the polls, and their votes were counted, every single one of them, on time in accordance with Florida law and Florida's Constitution. Sadly, the same cannot be said in southern Florida. In Palm Beach, Broward counties, we are witnessing a colossal disaster. Laws have been broken, Florida's Constitution ignored. None of this was caused by a hurricane, but rather by local officials who are incompetent, corrupt, and obviously feel they are above the law that 65 other Florida counties, 65 of 67, adhered to. In Palm Beach County, at least 15,000 new ballots were unearthed and counted after election night. And in Broward County, almost 75,000 so-called uncounted votes magically turning up day after day after day after the election. Tens of thousands of lost ballots just seemingly appeared out of thin air. The vast majority, of course, cast by Democrats. Now, this should not, let me be straightforward, this should not be Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal. This shouldn't be about politics. This is much deeper. Whatever your political affiliation, what we're witnessing is a horrific miscarriage of America's most fundamental rights and a serious potential now criminal violation. The law is clear. It is unambiguous. Florida law, let's put it on the screen, quote, says, the canvassing board shall report all early voting, all tabulated vote by mail results to the Department of State within 30 minutes after the polls close. The law continues, quote, the canvassing board shall report, with the exception of provisional ballot results, updated precinct election results to the department at least every 45 minutes until results are completely reported. 65 of Florida's 67 counties, they complied with the law, including every county in the Panhandle that was absolutely ravaged by Hurricane Michael 27 days prior to the election. Broward, Palm Beach counties totally ignored the law, broke the law. For days, Broward County officials continued to tally literally tens of thousands of votes in violation of state law. It appears yet again we have one system of justice and elections for Democrats and another for the rest of us. Now, the supervisor of elections in Broward County, a woman by the name of Brenda Snipes, would not even tell state officials where these mysterious votes were coming from, where the votes had been, how many votes were left to be counted. Again, a violation of law. There was no updating of votes every 45 minutes, again, violating the law. And this morning, multiple boxes full of sample and provisional ballots left behind in some rental car were actually discovered by an Avis employee at Fort Lauderdale Airport. This is insanity. You know, we send election observers to other countries. We need them here. And on Friday, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz literally blocked from observing a location where ballots were being loaded into a truck. Take a look for yourself.
Why can't we watch what's going on, man?
We were told you can't be here, so you got to.
Who told you that we can't watch what's going in and out of the truck?
My supervisor. You want to see my
Who's your super? Yeah, I would love to see him.
But until then, let's go.
All right. Will you tell me why we can't know what's going in and out of that truck? And what's the name of your supervisor?
We'll get all that taken care of.
Do you know this? Do you know his or her name? The supervisor's name?
Yeah, we're going to go get
Well, what's their name?
We'll bring them out to you in a second.
Do you know their name?
Yes, we'll bring them out.
What is it? Will you tell it to me?
Bring them out to you in a second.
What's on the truck?
What we're seeing in South Florida is a national disgrace, and it's far worse than that. Broward, Palm Beach counties violated any chance of there ever being any real integrity in the vote in Florida. We will never have any chance of knowing what the accurate vote tallies were from this past election now in the state of Florida. That has been ruined. That's off the table. And tonight, all we really know for certain is that the, quote, newly counted ballots have drastically tightened the election and subsequently triggering statewide recounts, all because of what is gross incompetence, corruption at the Broward County Supervisor of Elections Board and Brenda Snipes. Now, she has a history of this. Late last week, we had a judge ruling that Brenda Snipes actually violated state election law. Now, what is even more outrageous is that this is not new for Miss Snipes. Now, her track record is literally atrocious. Why she was even in this position is beyond any understanding. How she's been allowed to continue in this powerful position beyond comprehension. Last week, we learned that Snipes, quote, accidentally mixed in rejected provisional ballots with several hundred valid votes. That means the entire vote count has been irreversibly corrupted. And just this past August, a judge ruled that Snipes systematically had mishandled mail-in absentee ballots. In 2017, a judge also ruled she illegally destroyed ballots following a primary race. And in 2016, some Broward County election results were posted online, get this, before the polls had even closed. And in 2012, 1,000 uncounted absentee ballots, well, they were mysteriously discovered in Broward County a week after that election. And in 2004, Snipes simply lost track of 6,000 absentee ballots. Now, this is the woman that could determine the outcome of these important races for the Senate and the governor's race in Florida. Now, many Floridians are rightfully calling for consequences. Former Governor Jeb Bush tweeting out, there is no question the Broward County Supervisor of Elections, Brenda Snipes, failed to comply with Florida law on multiple counts, undermining Floridians' confidence in our electoral process. Supervisor Snipes should be removed from her office following the recounts. Maybe now. I don't think we should wait. Senator Marco Rubio, very vocal also about Snipes and her incompetence and corruption, tweeting, quote, every vote legally cast and received within time frame required by law should be counted. The issue in Florida has been repeated violations of election law by the incompetence and the lack of transparency of Palm Beach elections, Broward County elections. And now Snipes could, in fact, tonight be facing criminal charges. Sources have confirmed to us on multiple levels tonight a criminal investigation into election misconduct in South Florida is now ongoing. Just a short time ago, Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi released a letter from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement stating that they will work with the Attorney General Bondi on any criminal investigation and subsequent retrospect, now that he went out and fought for all those Senate candidates and Republicans picked up those seats and that in the Senate, by the way, turned the blue wave into a little baby blue trickle, because now Democrats are doing exactly what I told you they would do. They're now coming clean. The things they weren't saying on the campaign trail about what their real plan is to wage what is a never-ending, full-scale investigation into anything and everything Donald Trump, to destroy this president. And according to new reports, Pelosi and company, get this, they are planning to launch a subpoena cannon at the Trump White House, firing on all cylinders with a political hit list of nearly 100 targets, meaning 100 investigations, tax returns, Stormy Daniels, James Comey, the impeachment of Justice Kavanaugh. Shifty Schiff wants to actually investigate the president's treatment of CNN, the Washington Post, Amazon. Democrats are stopping at nothing to pursue the unhinged campaign to halt President Trump and his progress. By the way, that means our progress. That means America's progress. And of course, this is a plan of endless investigations. By the way, very few facts. Nancy Pelosi is actually saying Democrats don't need an indictment to move forward on their impeachment fantasies, while she and other Democrats fuel even more baseless hysteria about Mueller's Russia probe. House Democrats, they have been working overdrive to now smear the acting Attorney General, Matt Whitaker, which was the president's lawful choice, period. And don't forget, Rod Rosenstein, who's been running this whole thing, is conflicted in multiple ways, like signing the last FISA, writing the letter recommending that Comey get fired. But he's still been running it. They didn't care about his conflicts. Take a look.
I want to make this very clear. If he doesn't recuse himself, if he has any involvement whatsoever in this Russia probe, we are going to find out whether he made commitments to the president about the probe, whether he is serving as a back channel to the president or his lawyers about the probe, whether he's doing anything to interfere with the probe. Mr. Whitaker needs to understand that he will be called to answer, and any role that he plays will be exposed to the public. We don't want there to be any ambiguity about that.
You don't have confidence in him as America's top enforcement officer?
No, I don't. And don't just take it from me. There's bipartisan editorializing about this, that he should never have been appointed, and that it does violence to the Constitution and the vision of our founders to appoint such a person in such a manner to be the chief legal officer in our country. And that's bipartisan.
I'll go further. His appointment is simply part of an attack on the investigation by Robert Mueller, the special counsel. It's part of a pattern of interference by the president, part of a pattern of obstruction of that, attempted obstruction of that investigation.
The only problem is no one's talking about meddling with the Mueller probe. Nobody. The president has said twice in the last week, no. So ask yourself, the House Democrats, is there a single agenda item that they are advocating that will make your life better? Any one agenda item that's going to create more jobs, make this country safer, build a brighter future for our kids and our grandkids? Well, we know the answer tonight is no. It's all part of what I've been telling you. They've been hiding what their agenda is really all about. It slip out occasionally, and then they tell everybody stop, which is mobilizing their political hit list. Get revenge. They didn't like the results of the 2016 election. By the way, they didn't like the results of this last election. They want to shield their own deep state corruption and put this country's future at risk. What they ought to be focused on is our kids and our grandkids, and law and order and equal justice under the law, equal application of our laws. And yes, something called our Constitution. Yeah, the document from which all laws originate from. Our founding Constitution. All right, we have a lot to get to tonight. We'll also talk about Georgia. We'll also talk more about this agenda of the Democrats as it's revealed. We're going to start with the legal side of all this. We'll talk to Greg Jarrett, Andy McCarthy on what has happened down in Florida. That and so much more as we continue this busy breaking news edition of Hannity.
My goal is that we follow the law. And what we've seen is, you know, in the supervisor election in Broward and Palm Beach County, both of them, the courts have said they haven't followed the law. We know Brenda Snipes mixed illegal ballots with legal ballots. We know they've not let party officials in. The courts have said follow the law. So what I'm trying to do is get them to do what we expect. The laws are set up there to prevent fraud, and for whatever reason, they don't want to do it.
That was Florida Governor Rick Scott earlier tonight reacting to the latest developments in the Florida recount. Here with reaction to get the legal side of all of this, author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, The Russian Hoax, the illicit scheme to clear Hillary Clinton, frame Donald Trump, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, and Fox News contributor Andy McCarthy. Let's start with, we have civil violations of law, and now we have the criminal investigation that has now begun with law enforcement, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi tonight. What are we possibly looking at legally, Greg?
Well, unfortunately, Florida law has no teeth. Most of the violations already committed by Brenda Snipes, who is the epitome of incompetence and recklessness, are civil violations, so the only penalty is a fine which she doesn't even pay. It comes out of her office. It's true that there are felony statutes of fraud. There are about 20 of them in Florida. So far, 3 agencies in Florida say we have no evidence of fraud, but, Sean, their investigation is in a premature stage and only cursory so far, so it's good that the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is vowing an intensive examination. Snipes had the audacity to stand in front of cameras, I think it was today, and say, until now, nobody ever accused her of doing anything wrong, which is a lie. Every election she's been presiding over since 2002 has been marred in controversy. The question is she capable of corruption? Her track record suggests she is.
Yeah. Let me go to Andy. Look, it's not even a question laws were broken. We saw what the judge said on Friday night about the Florida Constitution, about laws in this particular case. But without rehashing what I've said in my opening monologue about Brenda Snipes' history, you have to wonder why she was there, but more importantly, what do you see on the legal side?
Well, Sean, I think, you know, you hit on the right question right now at the start. Why is she there? She really should not have been there presiding over this particular election, given what her track record is. And, you know, look, we have a situation where in Governor Scott's case, somebody had a 50,000 lead. On election night, it's down to 12,500. There could be good explanations for that. There could be corrupt explanations for that. And the problem is that the public has a right to know what is the explanation for it. And the way that they've conducted themselves, it makes it very difficult to give credit to this in terms of an election system that has integrity. I think, as you said at the end of your monologue, at the end of this, what we end up with is Senator Scott and Governor DeSantis, because I think their leads are too big to be overcome even by rampant corruption and fraud, if there is some.
Do we know if we have all the votes?
The bad thing.
Yeah. Do we? Are they still throwing in tens of thousands behind our back as we speak? You know, I just happened to find another 20,000.
Sean, right. Well, but this is the thing. If you're behind, your motive, your incentive is to try to foment as much chaos as you can and prevent there from being like a ceiling of where we know what the votes are and they don't go any higher. And obviously, if you're in front, as Scott and DeSantis are, what you want is some certainty. You want to say, you know, look, however the votes come out, they come out, but we at least need to know how many there are.
Well, we're never going to get, I could say with certainty tonight, #1, laws were violated. That's a fact. That's indisputable. Then we have the incident of Snipes mixing rejected provisional ballots with legitimate provisional ballots, Greg. We will never get an accurate count for Florida. It has already been tainted on many levels. 65 of the 67 other counties, including the Panhandle. If this happened in the Panhandle, I might understand it. But if 65 counties continue to get it right in Florida, and 2012 and 2014 and 15, 16 and 17, the same players, the same nonsense, the same games. it is not fair to the rest of Florida what goes on here.
And it tells you, Sean, that something is amiss here. When 65 counties can get it right, but just about every election, these two counties, Broward and Palm Beach, can't. She missed, Brenda Snipes, every deadline that was set, and everybody else met them. She commingled valid with invalid ballots, and then, astonishingly, tens of thousands of ballots suddenly and magically materialize out of nowhere with no proper accounting, no chain of custody. We have no idea when these ballots were cast and by whom. And so, you know, this has got the nefarious look of corruption written all over it. I'm not saying that fraud was perpetrated, but it does need to be investigated, given her track record.
Let's look at two specific issues, Andy, as we move forward. So we have two different recounts, really, that are going on. They're two different thresholds. One will be different in the governor's race because the threshold is higher in as much as the vote disparity is greater. That will be a machine recount.
Right.
Then they're going to look at, I guess, all of these provisional ballots. And there you have, we already have the attorneys for both Mayor Gillum and soon-to-be ex-Senator Nelson wanting to count the votes of illegal immigrants. They stood up and they literally advocated that those votes be counted. What are we supposed to do in that case?
Well, Sean, this is where they're philosophically at, though. They've been, you know, we have two different things going on here. We have the potential procedural irregularity that applies to this particular election, and then you have the overarching Democrat approach to government, which is to eviscerate the distinction between citizens and non-citizens. And we shouldn't think for a moment that if you can wrap your brain around the procedural irregularities, that their overarching agenda goes away. It doesn't. So, of course, they're going to take the position that none of the votes of people who might not properly be voting should not be counted, because in their minds, those people are just as legitimate to count as Americans voting are to count. And that's a big reason why our electoral system is in the mess that it's in. You know, the fact that people whine over people who shouldn't be voting having their votes counted, when we have that means Americans who vote get their votes discounted. That's just as big a problem.
And Greg, I mean, this is 18 years after 2000. Dimpled, pimpled, perforated, not perforated. Let me ask you this. Mark Elias, who you know so well from this whole Perkins Coie issue, he had a Virginia client ahead by 165 votes, 0.007%. Criticized Republicans for not conceding, saying the recounts don't tend to change the results. 165 vote difference. He had another client just up by 12,000 votes and said recounts should only be done where there are dozens or a few hundred votes separating the candidates. Doesn't exactly sound like a man of deep, abiding principles that cares about fairness and equality and justice under the law as it relates to elections.
People should be suspicious when Hillary Clinton's lawyer, who paid for Russian information, is involved in any election recount, and that's Mark Elias.
All right, guys, thank you both for your analysis. The legal side of this is going to be very important as we move forward. And when we come back, we have more stunning examples, stunning incompetence and bias from the official in charge of the elections in Broward County, Tammy Bruce, J. Christian Adams. Also, Matt Gaetz will join us. What he witnessed this weekend. We have the videotape and more. Straight ahead. All right, joining us now with more reaction to tonight's breaking news, Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce and former DOJ official, election lawyer at the Public Interest Legal Foundation, J. Christian Adams. Jay, you have been there. You've been following this. Let's go back to what you're seeing on the ground, what people need to know. How bad is this? And do you agree with Andy McCarthy's assessment that he doesn't believe it will ultimately impact the final results, which is that Rick Scott will be the next senator and DeSantis will be the next governor?
Andy is right. Recounts usually confirm the existing tally. But, Sean, what you're seeing is astonishing incompetence. We sued Brenda Snipes for incompetence in maintaining the voter rolls. And I got to know her very well. I got to know her employees. She was my witness on the stand at a federal court trial where she admitted non-citizens are on the voter rolls in Broward. They're voting. She doesn't turn them in when she finds out about them. She admitted there's felons illegally voting. She doesn't call the police when she finds out about them. There are people on her voter rolls who were born, they have birth dates when Grover Cleveland was president in Broward County. So I got to see close up how incredibly incompetent both Brenda Snipes is, as well as her entire staff. So this is not just her, it's the whole office.
Well, and we see that, Tammy, because it keeps happening year in and year out. This is nothing new. And I go back to the simple point, and then based on what J. Christian Adams is saying here, why is she there? But more importantly, the rest of Florida is hurt by this. And now they're being hurt dramatically by this. And their vote ultimately is in jeopardy, really, in the end.
Well, right, that every false vote, every illegitimate vote that's counted erases the vote of an American citizen. And that, of course, makes a mockery of the entire system. But I would take one issue with one word of our friend, Jay Christian, about incompetence. This is intent. And I think that it's very important. And Republicans and conservatives tend to expect the best of people. But the fact is, the left, you can't presume that they mean well. They do not. And this is a matter of, you know, the ends justifies the means. And it's not even about winning. Winning, of course, implies that you followed the rules and you've persuaded people. This is about stealing power. And that's what we're seeing unfold here. And I have to say, you know, the problem with the FBI and the DOJ, everything we've seen there with that corruption and the degree that they went to try to invalidate an American presidential election, I have to suggest, I think it's pretty obvious, that kind of a problem didn't just exist as an isolated issue within the federal government. I think it's throughout the system that now presumes it's completely in charge and that these elections are charades and that they're meant to give the impression to the American people that their vote counts, whereas in fact you saw Hillary's reaction of the shock that something didn't happen in a predetermined way. So I think we have to take this very seriously and recognize, and look, you asked Rick Scott a night or two ago, or maybe at the end of last week, why is she still there? Because, you know, he's been the governor, and he really didn't answer you. And that's what concerns me as well. The system allowing a woman like that to continue to operate, because in a way, this kind of chaos maybe suits the establishment in general, not just the Democrats.
And by the way, we're watching the recount as it takes place. Even as we speak, we expect by Wednesday that Ron DeSantis will be declared the winner. I think that it's the 19th, Jay Christian, if I'm not wrong, that Rick Scott would be declared the winner in that particular race. But I want to go back to Brenda Snipes and her team and how many hours you spent and what other things you learned about her on top of that which we already know.
Look, Sean, the trial went on for 2 weeks. They were losing things. I mean, we in Discovery, we asked for their manuals and procedures on how they keep the voter rolls clean. They couldn't find any until the third day of trial when they sprung it on us. And it's just astonishing levels of incompetence and chaos. I mean, you've never seen anything like it. And of course, then they ascribed race. They said they were being sued because of racial issues. It's the same playbook we see everywhere. But I want to warn you, Palm Beach is going to be a problem. Palm Beach has outdated equipment. They can't do a paper ballot manual recount. By the way, paper ballots share a lot of the blame here, too.
What happens when they talk about overvotes and undervotes and, oh, there's a mark over here, but not over here where you're supposed to do it? They're going to say, well, the intent is there for that. And in the one case where they went before the judge and they literally, both Gillum and Nelson's lawyers have said, no, we want that to count. And it was one vote, but one vote shows the lack of integrity.
Look, I think this entire dynamic shows what Governor DeSantis is going to be up against and what he's going to have to do and what Senator Scott is now up against. They've got to clean this up. Florida is too important of a state. It affects the entire nation. And for every citizen, Democrat or Republican, the legitimacy of these elections is key. Both of those men have got to step up and take the Donald Trump approach of being street smart and working first for the American people. And they are going to have the opportunity, I hope.
Now that we know a criminal investigation is underway, I want to see everybody will now have to testify. Let's see if we can get to the bottom of this. Problem is, you can't, that's not going to be something that gets done very expeditiously. All right, thank you both. When we come back, you just are not going to believe what happened over the weekend, what Democrats are planning to do, by the way, to Donald Trump now. We have Steve Scalise, Matt Gaetz, his experience this weekend in Florida. We got the tape. That's next, straight ahead. As I explained in my opening monologue tonight, the House of Representatives is poised to become literally the Pelosi destroy Trump House of Representatives. We got a sneak preview Sunday when a Democratic congresswoman from New York named Nita Lowey literally sat down with Axios. You got to watch this.
Should the majority look into these issues related to President Trump that has come up? The Space Force.
Yes.
James Comey's firing.
Yes.
The travel ban.
Yes.
The family separation policy.
Absolutely.
Hurricane relief in Puerto Rico.
Oh, it was absolutely inadequate.
White House staff use of personal email.
Oh, for sure.
The president's business dealings abroad.
Absolutely. And I want to see his tax return.
By the way, we're now identifying everything they kept quiet, about 100 issues they want to investigate. No plan to make your life better. I can only imagine what else they have in store. Also tonight, that Florida recount is on. Here's what happened to Congressman Matt Gaetz this weekend. Literally stopped from viewing. He was filming it. Ballots being transported. They stopped the congressman from doing due diligence. Take a look.
Why can't we watch what's going on, man?
We were told you can't be here, so you got to.
Who told you that we can't watch what's going in and out of the truck?
My supervisor.
Who's your super? Yeah, I would love to see him.
But until then, let's go.
All right. Well, you tell me why we can't know what's going in and out of that truck. And what's the name of your supervisor?
We'll get all that taken care of.
Do you know this? Do you know his or her name? The supervisor's name?
Yeah, we're going to
bring them out. Well, what's their name?
We'll bring them out to you in a second.
Do you know their name?
Yes. We'll bring them out.
What is it? Will you tell it to me?
Bring them out to you in a second.
What's on the truck?
All right, joining us now is Congressman Matt Gaetz, along with the author, brand new book. I've read this book cover to cover. Back in the Game, One Gunman, Countless Heroes, and the Fight for My Life. Republican House Majority Whip Steve Scalise is with us. Congrats on the book. I know you're still recovering. I know it's been very hard, and we do know how close you came not to surviving that day, and we're so glad you're here. Let's go to the Florida recount issue first, Matt. You represent the Panhandle. 27 days before this election, entire neighborhoods were wiped out. But on time, following Florida law, they got the job done. But as usual, Broward and Palm Beach, you went down on behalf of your constituents, I assume, because their votes shouldn't be, counterbalanced by something that's corrupt. Tell us what happened.
Well, Sean, you're absolutely right. I'll be damned if the people in South Florida are going to dilute the legal votes of my constituents who have a right to an honest, fair, representative republic. In the video you just showed, there were armed police that were stopping me just from trying to get an accurate record of what was going in and out of the supervisor of elections office in the middle of the night. I don't know if it was furniture. I don't know if it was election equipment, ballots. What I do know is that there is no chain of custody for 80,000 ballots. Those ballots were each 5 pages long, so you're looking at over 404,000 pages of information. That I don't know. I'm still waiting to hear from the supervisor. No, and look, I mean, what are we afraid of? We had the Palm Beach supervisor of elections tell the media that if they didn't turn their cameras off, she was going to have them arrested. That's the type of thing you would expect in a communist or fascist dictatorship.
I bet they respond differently, and even if they weren't being rude.
Hey, listen, if I was Jim Acosta, this would be viewed as a human rights violation, but because I'm a congressman trying to represent my constituents, I was told that I couldn't get an accurate record of what was going on, and now no chain of custody for ballots.
Unbelievable. That means how could you have any faith in it? Coming out days after the election, violating law after law. Congressman Scalise, you just heard Nita Lowey. We've been hearing from Nadler. We've been hearing from Schiff. We've been hearing from Maxine Waters. Axios identified 85, at least 100 investigations. How do you stop what is obviously the Pelosi destroy Trump at all costs subpoena brigade?
Well, Sean, first of all, I think that they go down this road at their own peril. President Trump has followed through on all the things he's promised he said he would do. Frankly, it's why the left doesn't like him so much. But it's also why in every place I would go to, every swing district I would go to, you would see thousands of people showing up for Trump rallies. President Trump would go to a place and there would be not only a packed house of a 15,000 person arena, but there'd be another 15,000 people waiting outside because they love what he's done to get this country and this economy back on track. And you look at the Senate seats that he was able to flip. The Democrat seats that are now Republican Senate seats because of President Trump's leadership. And so if they want to have this agenda, Sean, where they just want to harass the president, I think it's going to backfire on them, like what happened with the Kavanaugh hearing.
And look at what happened in 2010 with Obama, his first midterm. 6 Senate seats lost, 6. 63 House seats lost. That was 69 total. In 1994, 8 Senate seats, 52 House seats. And I think Matt Gaetz, we're learning tonight, good thing Donald Trump worked hard and picked up those Senate seats, and we won those races.
Yeah, Donald Trump's pretty good at winning states, and that's what the presidential reelection will be all about. President Trump's coalition clearly involves creating massive turnout in areas where he's popular. And, he embraced the challenge of this midterm, unlike any president in modern history. Now we've got to make sure that the strategy of the resistance doesn't metastasize from obstruction in Congress to stealing elections. That's why the work we're doing in Florida is so important. I don't want to give the Democrats any opening in the future to go and do that.
All right. I want to thank you both. By the way, Steve, I did read your book. It's Back in the Game, One Gunman, Countless Heroes, The Fight for My Life, Amazon.com. I hope people get a copy of it. It describes so many great heroes. Thank you. All right, when we come back, Congressman-elect Dan Crenshaw appeared on Saturday Night Live this weekend after one of the comedians actually mocked his war wound. Straight ahead. All right, so last weekend, Saturday Night Live's Pete Davidson widely criticized for mocking Republican congressional candidate Dan Crenshaw. He lost an eye due to an IED injury while he was serving this country in Afghanistan. Well, this weekend, Dan Crenshaw appeared on Saturday Night Live where he accepted the comedian's apology and had a really important message for all of us.
I mean this from the bottom of my heart. It was a poor choice of words. The man is a war hero, and he deserves all the respect in the world. I just wanted to say, for people that don't know, the reason you're wearing an eye patch right now is that you lost your eye to an IED in Afghanistan during your 3rd combat tour. And I'm sorry.
Thank you, Pete. I appreciate you saying that.
So we good?
We're good. Apology accepted. There's a lot of lessons to learn here. Not just that the left and right can still agree on some things, but also this: Americans can forgive one another.
Really, really class act. Anyway, this Veterans Day, I do want to take a moment, acknowledge the great sacrifices that our military has made every single day. They protect our freedom, our liberty, our Constitution, our way of life that we often take for granted. We want to thank every woman, man and woman in uniform, past and present. Thank you. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten. Let not your heart be troubled. Laura Ingraham.